Okay, so shall we get started? Um, Thank you everyone for attending. My name is Jess. I'm here to talk about customer onboarding and how I designed, along with my team, a process within the company I work for that had end user adoption in mind. So that was the end game. For us, it's not the only thing, but it's definitely a very important component, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why that is important, how you can build or design that process, and hopefully give you some nuggets along the way as well. So I'm Jessica Graham Morris. I am the Customer Success Manager at TaskFeed, which is a little bit of a loose title because we are a small company. So I'm a lot of things customer success at TaskFeed. That would be the more appropriate title. And for those of you who don't know, TaskFeed is a Salesforce ISV product. We're on the App Exchange. And it's essentially a project management tool, but we do focus on onboarding because a lot of customers choose our tool for the post-sales process, for implementations. They are basically B2B technology companies. A lot of them are SaaS products like we are. We are a B2B software as a service. We've been around for about 5 years. I've been at TaskFeed for a little over 2 years now. And basically, I'm a CSM for CSMs. So there's a lot of learning in this process because not only do my customers come to me for guidance and advice, but it's very interesting because I am onboarding them. That's one of the things that I do. And they are sort of getting knowledge from me and also getting tips and best practices so they can onboard their customers as well. So it's very meta in that sense. So what exactly is customer onboarding? There's a lot of buzzword going around onboarding and success, but what does it really mean? So, literally speaking, it's a process that introduces a new customer to your company, to your product, or your service. And it sounds like common sense, and a lot of the times we're led to believe that it's a very straightforward process. But really, it isn't, especially when it comes to B2B. We're not onboarding a consumer directly. There's a lot of people involved, and the values that you need to capture from them are different, Different people have different vested interest in your product. So why is it important to do a good job at onboarding? Well, because the seeds of churn are planted early is something that Lincoln Murphy, who is a leader in customer success, says a lot, which is true. It's like you can sense the red flags from the beginning. If you do a poor job in the beginning, chances are they're not going to stick around when renewal time comes, right? And it's actually up to 5 times more costly for you to acquire new customers and focus only on new sales than retaining those that are, your customers that are already subscribing to your product, and it's easy and straightforward to just renew. And you can also predict your revenue a lot better with those recurring customers. So you're also, like, if your churn is high, you're creating vicious cycle of bad deals coming in to make up. So, your ICP fit is like, you're letting in all those customers that are going to be a nightmare to implement, and they're not going to stick around either, okay? Also, if you're just, not doing a great job, you're going to overwhelm your technical support team. Likewise, if you're doing a good job, you're going to increase your revenue, and it's good word of mouth, it's free marketing for you, because your customers become your advocates. And they have a lot of energy in the beginning. They're super excited about your product. You don't want them to lose that energy, that passion for the product. It's so much easier to get them early on than try to do damage control later down the line. Okay? So this sounds like super straightforward, common sense, so why are we not doing this properly? Why are we doing this wrong, So here are some things that onboarding is not, just so we're clear, it's not support, okay? So you don't just let the support team take care of it, of your customer after the deal is closed won, okay? Support is reactive, is troubleshooting, is I have a problem, I'm gonna go for help, okay? Don't wait until your customer needs your help. Anticipate those needs, understand what they're looking after, so it's more of a proactive approach, okay? It's also not implementation and professional services. Yes, after you close a deal, there's a lot of implementation, training, and professional services involved, but that's not what onboarding is all about. You need to try to create a separation because it's more about the customer and less about the product. Really what you want is to grab the customer's attention, okay? And they're not interested in the products, or they don't want to be perceived as, just a consumer of your products. They want to be perceived as people. They're like, hey, I want attention, okay? And it's also not something that you can just slap around and send, oh, you get 2 calls, that's part of your onboarding. And if you don't want to attend, that's it. Or if you need more help, yeah, you're gonna have to pay for it, and that's fine, that's your journey. But don't just do that cookie cutter, version because you're not helping your customer do that. It's not really onboarding properly. You're gonna have some problems down the line, okay? So it's a mutual relationship, and you wanna make sure you're doing a good job because you're looking at the long term here, all right? So how does that relate to adoption? Well, for me, that's really the goal. If your end users are not using your product, they're gonna tell their managers, or your stakeholders are gonna catch on at some point. They're gonna be like, you know what? It's just not working. Like our team, they just didn't adopt it, okay? And chances are there was something there in the beginning that you could have done to address that issue, to prevent this from becoming a problem, all right? So it's really about helping your audience, your consumers. This is how I don't like to call them just customers, because customers, there's so many layers to it, but it's to get all of the people that will be touching your product or your service and be able to answer, what's in it for me, So you need to really understand what's in it for them and how can you help them. So when I started 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago at TaskFeed, we were a very young company. Stage of maturity was like very early days. And there wasn't a lot of investment in customer success. I was the first customer success hire. So obviously, we had a few problems that needed to be addressed. And this is not a comprehensive list, but the biggest ones that I could identify was like, one is it was ad hoc help, is what I call, like, we were just winging it, really. Our customers were paying, and we were like, just, okay, so what shall we do here? We were leaving it up to chance or leaving it up to them. And I remember having customers in the beginning. It's so embarrassing to remember that time, like customers asking me, so what's gonna happen next? Is there a training program? And we're like, so what do you want there to be? What do you want to happen next? And it's like, no, it's not up to them. They want leadership. They want guidance from you. So also, our support was overwhelmed. Everything was reactive. Everything was just putting out fires, And also, in terms of our systems and capturing information about customers, everything was all over the place. We were using, Google Drive for some things and Salesforce for our sales process, but there wasn't anything happening in Salesforce after the deal was closed won, except for like maybe maintaining our subscriptions, but nothing really related to onboarding, so we could capture and measure that information over time and see where are our bottlenecks, okay? Also, our goals were not captured. I wasn't answering, what our customers were asking for, and I wasn't asking them the right questions either. We didn't have a process in place to know what those questions had to be, okay? And obviously, customer health and retention, it's really difficult to know your customer health and also retention rates with an early days company. You're only going to start seeing that in a recurring revenue after the first subscriptions are up for renewal, So you're not going to realize you have a retention problem or a churn problem until a couple of years later, if you're like a yearly subscription, for instance, which most B2B SaaS companies are. They're not going to do monthly subscriptions because it's really difficult to scale. If it's B2C, yes, but okay. So this is what I needed to do in order to tidy up that mess and put a process in place. I was like, you know what? I was getting feedback from customers that were churning saying we just didn't adopt, like our team just did not adopt. And I was like, okay, how can I address the adoption problem here? I'm gonna have to know exactly how to target my audience, but I can't just it's not something that happens overnight. I needed a whole system in place. So I had to design my onboarding journey, establish who needs to be involved, set key businesses and objectives. I'm gonna go over these items. I don't need to spell them out, but basically it starts here. First you design it. You don't start thinking about the tools that you're gonna use until much later, okay? First you need to know what is going on, what you need to do. So when you're designing one, design a process that is not fit for, the company size you have today, but the one that you want to be, okay? And also put a best practice playbook in place because you're not going to be the only one delivering it, and you wanna make sure everyone is on the same page and consistent. So the only way you can really measure. You need to know what your calls to action are. What are the things that I need to go and address with my customer at which point in time? Okay? Also, know who's going to be doing what internally. Who's going to be responsible for sending the kickoff call invite? Who's going to be following up? Who's going to be doing the training? Who's going to be delivering the implementation? Because when you're putting a new process in your company in place, and this is not exclusive to onboarding, you need to make sure that everybody knows that this is what's going to happen from now on. Okay? And I put in caps, the handover is not an option because really it is not an option. That's the sales handover, sales to customer onboarding to implementation. If you're changing departments, if your customer is going through different people, they need to feel like everyone involved knows exactly who they are and what's going on. So you want to make sure you have some kind of system in place to capture the information that was said during this first part and then the second part and so on and so forth, okay? So you're not going into a call and asking them to repeat everything. The idea is really to create that seamless transition, okay? So also know who your customers are. If you're a B2B business, you're selling it to a customer who's going to be touching your product, going through. Who are, the key players here? Who are the people that are responsible? Who is accountable? Who needs to be consulted? And who can just be happily informed about it? Okay? So segment your customers, but also segment your audience. Okay? I'll show you an example. So what we did is about a year ago, we segmented our customers this way by license and subscription size, okay? And as we created these names like launch, growth, and enterprise, then when I went to put this in Salesforce, I discovered there was a chunk of customers that didn't fit any of that. They were like our legacy customers because they were in a legacy licensing model. So I also have to account for those when you're segmenting. But that wasn't giving me enough insight, so I had to segment it by also my audience, because those are the people that I need to approach at the end of the day. I don't care their size. It helps me to see, is this going to be more high touch or one-to-many, but I still needed to speak their language. This is what this is about. So I'm not going to say to the Salesforce administrator the same thing that the end user needs to know about the product because they just don't know. They don't care either. They're going to be using this in different ways, System administrators, at least for task feed, they rarely use our product. They are not CSMs, they are not implementation managers, but they need to configure it. So the approach is different, but you still need to onboard them. Adoption drivers are my main people. They are the people that I need to pay most attention to because you will notice that people leave companies. And if they are your influencers, sometimes, a lot of the times, the team that is left behind is just going to stop using the product if it never got adopted properly. So you need to speak to the new people who are in charge and say, hey, how are you? And you need to like flirt with them again so they are your friends. So this is one thing to keep in mind, okay? Set key business objectives and milestones so you can track them and then you can follow up on those, okay? Document things that are measurable so you can go back to your customer and say, hey, how is that going, all right? And you're gonna have to play detective because they are not gonna be willingly telling you what their problem is and what their objectives are. You're gonna have to probe that out of them. Ask open-ended questions. Don't say, so yeah, I heard that you want to use our tool to, measure the time to onboard. That's not very helpful. It's like, what's your biggest challenge today? What does success look like to you? So you can go back and see if they're doing a good job. All right? Then centralize the data. We use Salesforce. we drink our own champagne, right? We also use our own tool to help onboard. It's not the only thing we use, but the most important thing for me is to put it in Salesforce, to capture the data, because I always say to my teams that are sometimes, conducting business from Slack, I'm like, don't talk to me. If it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. I don't have a way to measure this later. If you want me to jump on a call, I'm gonna log time and effort spent on it. I want that to be on Salesforce so I can put that on a report, okay? So encourage your team to do that because it's gonna be a lot easier for you to justify an investment later down the line. Like, hey, I need more people, So you have a way of showing that, of proving, all right? So don't be afraid of change. Our process changed earlier this year because our needs changed. We needed to create a one-to-many training program. So before, it was very high touch, it was very one-to-one, and as we're growing, our needs change, and I had to incorporate this new system and new process into the existing one and say, now we're doing this. So don't be afraid of change. It's a lot of work, but you have to use this to help you. For me, one of the most important things was just not putting out fires. I created email templates for everything. Even if I don't verbatim copy paste or just use them, I use Salesforce email templates, so I just attach. It just saves me a lot of time because I don't have to go and repeat myself and I don't have to guess and remember, hey, what was that thing that was really catchy that I said? If it's good, create an email template for it. You can always change up before you send, And we automate our success review process, for instance, with emails, but it's not foolproof because sometimes, automation fails or it sends the same person twice or it's not really applicable, but it helps a lot. It will cut down on a lot of work, but you don't want to automate everything either, okay? You still need the human element. We're almost there, you guys. So onboarding KPIs, obviously you want to measure all of that hard work. These are some of the popular ones, time to first value. Sometimes onboarding starts during a trial. You want to get them out the door and, becoming a subscriber as soon as possible. So you need to measure how much time are we spending here on trials. That's one of the things that we're able to measure, today. And what's your renewal rate? As you can see, these are real reports that are so I can, from our org. So you can see that our renewal amount, close won versus close lost, look at that. It's the percent of total. And also, I could justify, hey, this is working. I know I wasn't crazy after all. Our average duration also decreased. It means time to value. I can work on the next step with them. And I also can now measure the average stage duration. It means we have these stages throughout onboarding. I can at least see where we're spending the most time. And if it's a problem, if it's a number that is not looking right, we can go and address it and say, hey, is this something that we can either spend more time on or spend less time on? Do we need to improve here and there? If you don't capture the data, you're not gonna know. So really encourage your team to put this all in Salesforce because it just makes it a lot easier. And finally, when does it end? When is it done? Well, it's not straightforward, and I don't 100% agree with the statement, although it's very true. It's whenever your customer sees value in your product, or at least the potential. But for me, the potential is not good enough, okay? I really want the customer using my product. If they're not using, it's not gonna be good forever. And sometimes you just need to go back and hold their hand a little bit longer. Or also for me, I have another process to onboard existing customers when the adoption driver leaves the company and somebody else steps in. So I don't have to go through all the same things again, but I still need to have something in place that I know this is what I need to do. I need to contact this person. I'm going to send this template that has these things. I'm going to schedule a meeting. I'm going to understand where they're coming from and what tools they used before, because I don't want them to just, say, yeah, I don't know this task feed thing, guys. Let's use something else. Okay, I don't want that to happen. So you need to onboard these people again. And yeah, and that's it. Thank you everybody for attending. Anybody has any questions? And I know the other sessions are starting soon, so you can always grab me in the hallway and I'll be happy to answer any questions. When the slides are also released, I'll have some sample, things that I created to give you a little bit more inspiration, like sample timeline. This is something that I share with our customers for this type of onboarding, and also some of the tools that I use and recommend. So I'll be sharing that so you guys don't have to worry about, taking photos. You can. I'm super flattered too. So, but I think they will be released, and then I'll put some nice, cute links for you guys too.
Just a question.
Yes.
The report you just displayed.
Which one?
Time spent,
Yeah, this one. Hold on.
Is it on the Salesforce tool or?
It's our tool. It's task feed.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to use that in sales, it's really difficult though. It's like you're going to spend a lot of time like creating custom objects. It's not, yeah.
It's like a time sheet in Salesforce.
Kind of, but it's a little bit easier to use. Yeah, it's more user friendly. But yeah, I'm not a salesperson, but I can give you their details to contact them. But yes, we drink our own champagne, we use our own tool, and it gives us a lot of insight for that period of time. Because it just gives instant metrics if you're using the tool. That's another thing I say to my customers. If you're not capturing data in Salesforce, if you're not using it, there's nothing in the world, not even Einstein, to predict those things for you. You need to use it, okay? Because if you don't use it, you lose it, okay? All right, thank you.